Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey, Moen, Evan, Bernd. Evan, how we doing?
Doing well. Could be better watching these games.
Exactly. You got that right, my man. So let's just get right into it because it was a couple of so-so performances from the Bucks this week. The first one being the unfortunate, god-awful, eye-gouging 130-111 loss against the Toronto Raptors on Wednesday night. Now, really not much went right this game. Okay. I think it's safe to say that this is a game that Adrian Griffin going up against his former team is probably one he's going to want to forget, mainly because of the fact that Toronto just everybody got it going offensively. You mentioned like Pascal Siakam, 26, Dennis Schroeder, who I feel like Milwaukee's always had trouble with. He had 24 in that game. Scotty Barnes, Jakob Porter looked like an all NBA. OG Anunoby had a surprising 16. I'm surprised Gary Trent Jr. didn't go off for 50. Okay, because that's how he's been performing against Milwaukee. So, I guess, what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Toronto?
Well, again, I thought the Hawks were going to be like the game where they kind of figure out like, oh, let's change some things. And then they beat the Heat, and now they play the Raptors. And it was, in my opinion, it looked worse than the Hawks game in general. I think the biggest thing I noticed besides the atrocious shooting, the biggest thing that sticks out for this game and a lot of the other games too, is the rebounding. It looks horrible and like non-existent. So the Bucks for the Raptors game, rebounds total, they had 29, and the Raptors had 50. That's a big difference. And I think what bothers me the most about it is their lack of trying to go for a rebound. There's so many possessions where everybody looks at the ball and expects someone else to kind of get the rebound for them, and then no one does, and then the Raptors get it again. And one play that stood out to me was, I don't remember what quarter it was. I think it was later in the second half. But Gary Trent Jr. took a pull-up shot about around the foul line. Missed it, fell to the ground, got up, and still got the rebound, passed it out for a three-pointer. And I looked at that play, I was like, huh. That's the scheme, because the Bucks kind of made a comeback. They got it back to 13 at one point, and then I blinked and they were down 23 again. But it's the laziness, I think, in plays where it's you force the guy to miss, you force him to fall without fouling, and he still gets the rebound. He got back up, was like, oh, here it is. I was like, okay, this is, and then dish it out to Siakam for a three. These are the plays where it's super sloppy, super lazy, and it's frustrating because you're making somewhat of a run and you're doing stuff like that just sets you guys back so much. Giving up extra points, I should say. Just because offensive rebounds, they had 15 offensive rebounds, and I don't know how many points they scored off of that, but 15 rebounds, that's got to be at least 15, 20 points right there. But yeah, it's a lot of laziness, and I think that's what bothered me the most about that game and just kind of their games overall this season.
And I think what made that performance even more unprecedented is that it was the second time it happened in within the span of a week.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't really seen that for Milwaukee, really for the past 5 years. They looked like the old school Bucks. Where they're mediocre, they're fighting for the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference, that for the Larry Drew days, or even the first couple of years with Jason Kidd, that kind of performance wouldn't shock you because Milwaukee wasn't at that level yet. But this is a championship contending team.
Yes.
You can't get blown out twice, especially by teams that you're going to end up being way better than. Okay,
Exactly.
Atlanta's probably going to be fighting for a bottom half seed, like a 7-8. And the Raptors are rebuilding. You can't be blown out by the Toronto Raptors in a rebuilding situation. And look, I understand they've always had trouble with Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't let that happen. Okay, Adrian Griffin knows these guys well. Okay, he was an assistant there. He had been there for the past 5 years. Toronto, largely enough, has the same team.
Literally last year, he was on their team.
They have the same core guys. So he can't. It just looked like he had no idea how to defend them.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, Toronto had one of the worst offenses in the league coming into Wednesday's game. And it's probably going to stay that way for the rest of the season. They have now one shooter, well, maybe two if you want to throw in Grady Dick, like two true shooters on that roster. Okay, so you can't. It may all right. Maybe if you want to throw in Dennis, but Dennis Schroeder's going off for 24.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I'm not surprised that once in a while these bench guys got to get their shine, but it always ends up happening against Milwaukee.
Always does, no matter what sport.
No matter what the sport is. But that was such a bad performance. And they started off similar to the way they did against Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They just came out flat. And they couldn't recover.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you think you would have again kind of got over that hump from the Atlanta game, especially being the Raptors. Like we said, that Adrian Griffin was help coaching, but it's one of those things where they lost like 5 minutes into the game. Like you're like, all right, cool, that's the game already, and now you have to kind of force yourself to watch this. Because like deep down when one team starts extremely hot and the other team doesn't, like there's usually no way of coming back. But yeah, just watching guys like Dennis Schroeder and Pirtle and Anunoby just kind of go off. It's frustrating because you literally have Giannis, you have Damian Lillard, you have Chris, you have Brook Lopez, and they all played horrendously. Brook 1 for 8, 0 for 4 on threes, and Pat Connaughton took 2 shots in his 23 minutes. Now, one thing I have noticed though about these kinds of games is for this game and then the Hawks game, whenever the Bucks are getting blown out, Malik Beasley goes off. He had 20 points, 6 for 9 on threes, and 7 for 10 overall. It's like, where is he when the Bucks need him the most? We'll get into that obviously in the Knicks game, but they're getting blown out. Malik Beasley goes off. They're winning a lot, and Malik Beasley does not go off. It's kind of contradicting. But a positive out of this game, I think, is seeing Andre Jackson and Chris Livingston get in. Chris going 2 for 2, 1 for 1 on threes, and Andre Jackson have a really nice steal. Fast break dunk, shows a lot of potential. And again, AJ Green came in as well with 2 points. The GOAT.
Malik, and you're right about that. The stats Malik Beasley is putting up are, there's a term for that now. They're called empty calorie stats. I mean, stats that really don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but it just keeps the fans wanting for more.
Yes.
Where it's like, ooh, like, okay, the Bucks played bad, but ooh, Malik Beasley, nice little 15 or 17. And then, when the team's winning, and like you said, they need him the most. It's like, God, Jesus, Malik Beasley, 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
What does he do? So it sucks because the opposing defense is really not trying anymore. It's like, all right, let's just let these guys score. We're not gonna overexert ourselves here. And so that's where mainly those stats come from. But you are right, in clutch situations, it's like it's hard to rely on Malik Beasley because at this point he's probably going to be like a 36-37% shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's not going to go much lower than that, but he's going to get a lot of wide open looks. And the problem is it's just consistently he just hasn't knocked him down.
Exactly, which is frustrating. Obviously you can't expect him to go 6 for 9 every game, but going 6 for 9 and then 1 for 4 or 2 for 7, it's annoying sometimes.
Yeah, and it does kind of make sense why he. It's not that he's not a good rotational player, but it does kind of make a little sense why he, in the postseason, he kind of ended up on the bench
Mm-hmm.
because, in the NBA, you just gotta be able to knock down shots. Okay, if you're wide open, okay, I'm not saying you have to knock down every one because people do miss. Nobody's perfect, but at a consistent rate, you got to be able to knock down shots.
And it's one of those things where if he's going to be a starter, you kind of have to expect a little more from him. Now, again, he's not going to do that every time, like you said, but it would be nice to kind of see somewhat of a consistency, especially if he's going to get 25 or roughly 25 minutes a game starting. So, again, hoping it can kind of go up, but I don't want to see 20-point stats, 6 for 9 on threes when you're getting blown out. It would be nice to see that on some games where they maybe win. But can't always get what you want, unfortunately. But I think overall that was probably one of the highlights of the game. I think just in general, lost by 17, but Malik Beasley had 20.
Yeah. So obviously throughout the podcast, if you guys see me turn my head, the Packers are on. Okay. They're up 7-3. They gotta win this game, Evan. Okay. They gotta win one because they haven't won since September. And obviously, Evan, what month are we in?
November.
Yeah, so they didn't win in all the month of October. Okay, it's been really hard. Okay, I'm tired of losing, and I just want them to win. I just had to clear that so I didn't have people wondering why I keep turning my head. The Packers are on. I need them to win. All right, move on to the next game. So, in case anybody was really unaware, God forbid I was, Evan, it was the first game of the play-in tournament.
Yes.
That started on Friday. And really, before we get your thoughts on the game, what were your thoughts of the court?
Okay, so when the NBA or whoever released all the courts, you kind of look at them and they're like, "Oh, those are fun, like those are cool." And then you saw the Bucks one, it's like, "Oh, like they didn't put like a lot of effort into theirs." But then when you see them on the court, the Bucks one I think looked the best, and all the other ones looked atrocious. I watched the what game? The Nuggets game after I watched the first half. Horrible. It's like it looks like a court where the fans see the colors, but like the players don't, where it's like some effect. It looks horrible. And then the Bulls looked stupid, just like all red. And then the other one I could not stand was the Pacers. Like they're dark blue and then like a navy blue and then a darker ish blue. It looks really bad, like really bad. And then they have the big ass trophy on center court and then in the free throw in the paint areas. It's an eyesore, and I don't want to look at that for 48 minutes.
I thought the Heat. I thought the Heat may have had if we could, I think it might actually help if we gave him like a visual aid. So let's kind of. I'm gonna like share a screen and so because I just want to give a visual aid of like
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about here. So here's a visual aid. So what was the first one you were talking about?
The Nuggets. If you look up NBA in-season courts, you'll get some. It looked really bad. The Suns also looked silly.
Whoa! Wait, is that the Nuggets court?
Yeah, and then they have the 5,280 on it.
What the hell? What the hell? What?
I think hands down the Bulls one is the worst.
All right, we'll pull up the Bulls one.
Horrible. It it hurts your eyes to look. It's so red. Shebang.
Oh God. God, what the hell?
And
that's the court?
To see it, the picture is different until you actually see it being played on. Where like that looks.
Oh God.
It looks cool, but you start playing basketball on it, and it's like
Oh
I
Lord,
can't keep looking at that.
Lord have mercy. Why
There's
everything is red?
there's just there's more bad ones than there are good ones.
All right.
And I
What was
stand
the other
on
one
that.
you said? The Pacers.
Pacers aren't too good. The Pelicans is horrible too. I'm
Well,
looking at all the courts right now.
all
The
right. Let's see what we
Clippers
got.
have a bad one.
Oh God, that's the Pacers.
It's too much. It's way someone designed these and we're like, yeah, that like these are good.
All right. Yeah, I guess this could be a thing. We're doing a live reaction to some of these playing courts. Let's see. You said the Pelicans.
Pelicans, yeah.
Wait, what's okay? Is that their court right there?
No, that's a different one.
Oh.
If you Google NBA in-season courts and then go to Google Images, there's a picture with all of them. Because I'm looking at all of them just to kind of refresh again.
Yeah.
But it makes the Bucks one look good. And personally, I like it a lot better now that I've seen
Would it be
a lot of the other courts.
It would be like on NBA.com.
Yeah, ESPN has it. Yeah, that's the
I
picture
see
I'm
it.
looking at.
Okay, let's see.
It's just
All right.
overall just not good. I get the idea, I really do. But like the stripes down the middle and then the off colors, because the stripe only is the court, and then the other color, like it ends there. Like you can kind of see it for like the solid colors. Doesn't go like the full way, which makes sense. But some of them are just really bad. The ones I think with the red look the worst. So
Yeah,
like
so that would be the Bulls and the Heat.
I think the Bulls could have done better. Kind of like the Trailblazers one in West A.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have the stripe down the middle that's just like a regular court. But like it just I don't know. It's just really bad. The 76ers one looks bad with the blue. The West B, that's the Pelicans one at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
You're like going back to like the
Ew.
throwback colors, like the purple and green. Yeah, overall just not good.
And I don't even know if I could find Milwaukee's, that would be
They are East B, right in the middle.
oh yeah. I don't even know Milwaukee. Milwaukee looks okay.
I think I like theirs because they're the only one who has
Okay.
like a regular court being the primary color. And then the green is that little strip. I think it would have been a lot worse if the entire court was that green and then the middle strip was the court color, I guess, like that tan, kind of like what the Trailblazers are.
I don't know what the Wizards. What were the Wizards thinking with, like you said, the all red is just yeesh.
Yeah, I don't know. it's an eyesore, I think, just to look at overall. I'm not looking forward to watching Bucks games with other teams' courts, I think overall.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
I didn't design these, so it's someone else's fault. But they're horrible. And I think the majority of other NBA fans can say the same thing.
I don't know if you've seen this because I see you wearing a Warhawks sweatshirt right now.
Oh,
the
yeah.
AI generated Perkins Stadium. What was your view on that?
It looks kind of cool. Perkins Stadium, I think in general, I think it could look a little cooler if it like had a better entrance, I think. But it looks sick. I think all the AI stadiums always look cool, but yeah, always got to rep UW. So happy I went there. What?
They look cool, but at the same time, extremely unrealistic.
Oh, 100%.
Like, okay, like I saw the Perkins Stadium AI generated. I'm like, okay, you're acting like we could just like design a city
Mm-hmm.
like around that. Like I think that personally, I thought it looked cool, but by the same token, it's like, okay, how much room did you actually think Whitewater has
Yeah, you'd have
to
to
build a stadium like that?
gut the entire like sports area, like from the field center and behind. Like that has to be the stadium. Get rid
Yeah,
of all the parking. We don't need that. You can walk there.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it was basically, oh, yeah, here's what Whitewater looked like if they had tons of money, like get a dome. Like it looked really like, oh, this is nice and futuristic. Also, would never happen in a million years, but
But it looks cool.
it does.
I feel
It
like the
does. So I brought up the play-in. So I brought up the play-in tournament. You know, we just reacted to the court. Milwaukee played against the New York Knicks Friday night, ESPN. You know, one of my favorite broadcasting duos of all time, JJ Redick, Richard Jefferson. Now, I do have to admit, okay, because I don't want to be a fake fan. I did have an event. I'd watched a 9-minute highlight of the Bucks playing the Knicks. Okay. And really what I can glean from that is Jalen Brunson. It's basically just Jalen Brunson for the Knicks, and really nobody else contributed. I mean, that's really going to be the story for the whole season, is that the New York Knicks just don't have a good enough supporting cast. Okay. They need to add another star. They needed to add like someone like Donovan Mitchell, because trust me, like the Knicks getting to the postseason, it's not like going up against the top dogs. It's not even going to be enough. They can maybe beat Cleveland again, like they did last year, but it's just not going to be enough. They're going to be out in the second round again. So, and that's their ceiling right now, Evan. Like it's not going to be anything more than that. They're not going to be competing to go to an Eastern Conference Finals. They're going to be competing to go in the second round.
Yes.
They don't have enough to compete with the other top dogs in the Eastern Conference.
But what's frustrating is that we almost lost to them. I think with like it was just a little over a minute. The or Jalen Brunson hit that 3-pointer to put him up 2, and then right after Lillard hit that 3. Now I'm going to be honest. Overall, for the entire season, Bucks are what 3 games in, or 6 games in. I have not enjoyed one game. I feel like I can't say I've thoroughly enjoyed a game. Now, obviously, it's fun to win, but how they've won is frustrating. I don't want it to come down to the wire. All 3 of their wins have been in the last minute or 2 that they won. Every game has been so close, and I haven't just been like, cool, we won by 12. Like, that was a fun game to watch. But that 76ers game was frustrating because you're up 20. The Heat game was frustrating because you're up 25 and you barely won. And then this game, you were up, I think, like 8-12 at points, and then you're losing with over a minute left. But again, a win is a win. But it's a frustrating win, I think, overall. But I would say highlights, obviously, Damian Lillard had 30 points. Giannis had 22. Now, I think one of the big things, though, that I wanted to mention is it's weird seeing Giannis play 35. We'll round up the 13 seconds to 36 minutes and only take 10 shots. And 3 of them were threes, which he somehow made all 3. But he missed 6 free throws. He made 3 3-pointers, but missed 6 free throws. Make that make sense? It doesn't. But it's weird seeing him only take 10 shots. Lillard takes 15 shots. I don't know. I feel like Giannis should be taking more shots. That's just a personal opinion. I still think Giannis is the best guy on the team. And I just wish I could get more from him, which is weird to say.
But the part that makes it more frustrating is that if you ask Giannis straight up, does he think he's the best guy on the team? He's going to say Dame.
Say no.
Like, Giannis talked about before the season that, okay, like me and Dame have like dreamed about playing with each other. And there's someone who wants to defer. And I think Giannis is, to appease Dame, he's deferring, I think, more than he should.
Yes, I do too.
And I think from his standpoint, okay, because we've seen like all of these duos. Some have worked, some haven't. The ones that don't work, like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. The reason why that didn't work is because they took turns because nobody said, I'm going to be the focal point of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
It was, Russ, you take the shot. And then KD, like, I'll take the shot. So I think Giannis is like, I don't want Dame to feel like that, but feel like we have to take turns on offense. Okay. And it's a little different because Milwaukee, I think, has more talented players than OKC did, especially after James Harden left. And I think that Giannis is like has the kind of personality to be like, if I take like 8 or 9 shots, it's like, and we win it. Does that really matter? And you're right. I do think Giannis could stand to be a little more dominant. But I think that to make Dame happy, he's like, here, Dame, like you take it over. Like you're taking the final shot. And rightfully so. I don't know. I think those two are kind of finding their stride of, Giannis, maybe Giannis doesn't know when to take over. Am I giving it to Dame too much, or does Chris need to get involved? So
Yeah.
I think it's a tough, fluid situation right now.
It's weird just because I was looking at the other parts of the stats. Giannis took 10 shots. Chris took 10 shots in 14 less minutes. And Bobby took the same amount of shots in like 20 less minutes. So it's just weird to go from Giannis usually taking like 20 some shots, usually some games, to 10. But hey, whatever works. But I would say out of every single player, I think the statement player was Marjan. 5 for 7, 3 for 5 on threes. Jay Crowder had a pretty decent game too, with the 3, 4 for 6. Malik Beasley, though, we're gonna come back to him. 0 for 2 shooting, 0 for 1 on threes. So again, there goes like that whole 20 points to 0 points in the span of a game. But again, their 3-point shooting looked a lot better. They actually shot over 50%, which usually doesn't happen for the Bucks just in general. But it was a good game overall. Again, very frustrating near the end just because you're actually playing well and you're going to lose to one player, essentially Jalen Brunson, for what we mentioned earlier with his 45. But again, a win's a win. Little Dame time moment near the end, a go-ahead 3, and then an and 1 near the end. But again, we should be beating these teams by more than 5 points, I think. Realistically, in my opinion, I think the Bucks should be undefeated from who they've played and how they've played against them. But hey, it is what it is. But hopefully, again, their next game, they can kind of turn it around a little bit, just because I don't want to keep having to worry about not winning games that we should be winning.
Yeah, sweat out every win. Yeah, like I said, the Bucks right now are playing like Devin Williams in the 9th inning. Obviously, Evan gets that reference.
Yes.
You just gotta, or the real OG Brewer fans know K-Rod in the 9th inning.
Yes.
Where you just gotta sweat out. We just gotta, they're gonna allow a couple runners on. You just gotta sweat out every win. Like that deep exhale, and I think that's what everyone's talking about. Where it's like, I'm sick of that, dude. Just win by 15. Especially against a team that we know you're better than.
And it's frustrating because I hate the stress of watching every game knowing that we're up double digits, or even sometimes, well, obviously still double digits, but it's in the 20s, and a chance to lose, because they did that a lot last year too. And I want a solid win, and I feel like I haven't seen a solid win or just game in general this season for the 5 games they've played, and they play against the Nets tomorrow night. So hopefully that could be our first one. They're playing in Brooklyn, and then they play the Pistons at home, and then the Pacers, and then the Magic. So, like, these are the 4 games where, like, they got to just solidify a win. Make me happy to watch them again, because I'm not feeling that way.
I don't think it'll happen against Brooklyn because I think Brooklyn is sneaky good.
They are, and it's weird.
They got some good players.
Yeah, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges again. They're getting a little squad going, which is nice to see. But again, some of these teams
Ben Simmons, he worked out in the summer. Let's see how he looks.
Yeah, he's actually not doing too bad. I will give that to him.
Okay, hey, he it's his revenge season.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's had he's had 2 revenge seasons. Third time's a charm, Evan. Third time's a charm. I mean, look, he said it's like I'm gonna come out and play aggressive, man. I'm just gonna. So you know what? I hope he's healthy. Okay, I don't like to crap on Ben Simmons.
Yep.
Look, I think that the Nets are rounding back into being a good franchise because they got the KD Kyrie stink off them. Even throwing James Harden, Jesus, that's such a rough year that all 3 of your stars just requested trades.
Yes.
You never see that. You see maybe one disgruntled star. The Nets got somehow managed to get 3 disgruntled stars. Have no idea how they made that possible.
And it still just didn't work.
No.
2021.
It didn't. Nothing about that worked. They, geez Louise. Just thinking about that whole situation where, they had KD and Kyrie basically running the organization.
Mm-hmm.
They hired Steve Nash. They wanted Steve Nash fired. Okay. Kyrie tweets about that stuff with the unfortunate tweet about the Jewish people.
Yep.
He got suspended 5 games. Is playing his best basketball. Then requested a trade. Then KD requested a trade right after. It was just boom, boom.
And then everyone's gone. But I think Boston. I think Brooklyn's better off with the team that they have now.
Absolutely.
I think just kind of overall.
Absolutely. That's a young core. That's who the Nets should be. The Nets shouldn't be thought of as a destination spot. I think it's a good growing spot for young players. Kind of like Washington. Jesus. Did you see that, by the way? Where Kuzma or Jordan Poole threw an alley-oop to Kyle Kuzma and
off the backboard, they're down 20.
So fun. If I'm a fan, okay, first of all, if I'm the head coach, I've probably lost all control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're allowing that to go on, right, you probably don't have, a lot of leadership qualities there. If you're allowing Jordan Poole to throw a off the backboard alley-oop to Kyle Kuzma when you're down 20, it's they're basically just saying he's probably lost control of the locker room. I don't even need to assume that. I'm just saying that if I'm coaching a team and one of my players throws an off the backboard alley-oop and we're down 20, I'm taking his ass out of the game immediately. I'm not even giving it a second thought. You gotta lay it on the law here, Evan.
Again, they got their rings. They got a bag. They don't really care anymore, and it's unfortunate, but it's funny. It's for our own entertainment.
Oh, it's hilarious. It was hilarious, and the Hawks fans booed too. I think it was in Atlanta. So yeah, a lot of it was funny, but going back to New York for a quick second. Julius Randle shot 5 of 20.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, he was horrible. He was shooting concert dates.
I don't know what happens with Julius. Julius Randle should be better than he is. And I always think of Julius Randle as a top 15, top 20 player. But there's some regular season games. What?
Then he does this.
And he's he's maybe top 30. I'll put him a top 30. I don't know. He just has these games where he's just not aggressive and he's just settling for jumpers.
Yeah, he shot 9 threes, only made 1 of them. He did, though, have 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals, so he did make up for it on another way, but you win the game if he makes 2 more shots. Or 1 3-pointer, and it's one of those things where you make 2-3 more shots is a whole different game.
And why is he taking 9 threes?
Exactly.
make any sense to me.
Well, I think one of the big things probably is that no one else, I feel like, on their team could even make one. Brunson had 45 with only 2 threes, but Josh Hart missed all of them. Randall had 1.
What about Dante?
1 for 4. Quickly 1 for 3. Quentin Grimes though had 5 for 10. He was their only like consistent shooter, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, if the Knicks want to fight for the second, like the fight for the second round, please be my guest. Because, like I said, they just really just don't have enough to compete against Milwaukee, Boston, Philly in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And, then Milwaukee then has another game. Do they play tonight?
No, they play tomorrow against the Nets.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You mentioned that.
And then they have Wednesday and Thursday and Saturday this week. So they got 4 games this week. Finally, some consistent basketball. I feel like it's been very choppy with like 2 in a row, then off a couple games or off a couple days. But we got 4 games this week. So tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So the 6th, 8th, 9th, and 11th. And then off until Monday.
That's not bad. It's not bad. Nice little consistency there.
Yes.
Let's see. I don't know if there was. I guess the only thing I could really think of that I actually wrote a bit of a story on this is that Adrian Griffin did decide in Friday's game to really just change up the defensive strategies there, because Milwaukee had been one of the worst teams in terms of allowing paint points.
Yes, and defensively the worst rated team in the league.
So I get it. AJ Griffin's trying to put a stamp on it, but I don't know what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's trying to run like what they ran in Toronto, because if he is, that's just stupid. Like we just don't have like, the length. Well, I just don't think we have Toronto's personnel. I think that's the biggest issue here. I'm not saying the defenders aren't good, but Toronto basically had like 4 or 5 guys who could defend at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And Milwaukee just doesn't really, they just don't have that. They got Lopez and they got, Beasley could be good. And then they got Giannis. That's about it. I would think about players who could defend at an elite level, at a Toronto Raptors like level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically the players just decided to go to Adrian Griffin. They were like, we gotta. They were basically like, can we put Brook Lopez in more drop coverage situations? And you saw he had like 8 blocks.
Yeah, he like tripled the blocks that he had in all the games up until that one. He had 2 up until the Knicks game, and he had 7, I think, that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said, or it was Coach Griffin who said that anonymous, players kind of came up to him saying that Brooke should be playing drop, and he's like, okay, let's try it. And then it worked. So hopefully that's something that will consistently stay throughout the season. Again, just because it really showed 8 blocks. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It really showed how quickly he was able to do that, or how, I guess, different it changed the momentum for some of the games, especially near the end when he had a good block on Dante. And I think one more block late in the game too, but hey, it worked, and I hope it stays because it clearly was effective when it needed to be.
And the concerning part about it is that the players feel as though they could just walk up to Adrian Griffin and be like, hey, we should change this, and he did it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, how is Mike Budenholzer as a leader?
Yeah.
If they can't do that for him, then Mike Budenholzer was probably just like, no, I'm going to stick to my thing. And Adrian Griffin is just...
He's open to
listening to his players. So that's what makes me think like the Mike Budenholzer era, while it wasn't a failure because they got a championship out of it, I just don't think Mike Budenholzer took really any input from his players.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a lot of stories of Mike Budenholzer like changing up anything offensively, because they're defensively, sorry. Because you saw that story last week about, Giannis guarding Jimmy Butler, and he's like, I've wanted this matchup for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me think that if Mike Budenholzer in game doesn't listen to his best player, then he probably wasn't listening to really any of his players regarding anything defensively.
Yeah, let alone Giannis, your star guy. So, hey, I hope that kind of shows the commitment and I guess more commitment for Coach Griffin to his players, and I hope the players can kind of see like, okay, like he's willing to listen to us. Like it's not like something where they can feel like nervous or not wanting to do it just because they asked once, he said no, and then they kind of never go back. But hey, he's willing to do it. I'm willing to kind of see what happens, and if some of the players put more input, let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you adjust from there.
Yeah, and once again, I also checked out a story on this last week. A Bucks freelance writer did write a story about the Giannis and Dame pick and roll has been underutilized so far this year.
Yes.
To the point where I wrote the article, it only been ran like 29 times. So, and I kind of explained it for one thing is that Joe Prunty, I believe, is now like the lead assistant coach offensively.
Mm-hmm.
During the Jason Kidd era, Milwaukee was like in the lower half of the league in terms of pick and rolls being run. Terry Stotts and the Portland Trailblazers were one of the highest teams running the pick and roll. So, and again, I don't know how many pick and rolls you've seen from Giannis and Dame. Giannis and Dame on Friday. I don't think it didn't look like a high number. I could be 100% wrong on that. But, I think that, the pick and roll could be utilized a little more. I think the other issue that they're running into is that teams are dropping. So they're preventing Giannis from getting easy looks at the basket. And they're basically forcing one of them to shoot. And Dame hasn't connected on a lot of those opportunities yet. And really nor is Giannis, because like teams are, basically making sure that Giannis doesn't get like any easy baskets in the painted area.
Yeah, I feel like quick input on it. I feel like they're trying other things before they just utilize the pick and roll just so people don't figure it out so quickly or they know how to easily adjust to it. So I'm sure they're trying out different things where it's, well, we can't use the pick and roll every single time. So let's see what works. And then if nothing really works, then probably utilize the pick and roll more. Again, I kind of read that somewhere, someone said, but it would be kind of nice to use it more in general because I feel like when they have used it, it's worked for the most part. But I would assume they're probably picking around, seeing what could potentially be used as well. And then you can use the pick and roll as like a late game kind of thing or used if you're making a run, if you're kind of coming back a little bit or trying to get ahead. But that's my intake is maybe they're using it just so they don't overuse it and then people quickly adjust and now you got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I agree. But here's the other thing. Here's the other caveat to that too, is that when Milwaukee has ran the pick and roll, they haven't had a shooter like in the right corner. So I think that's the other thing to it too. It's like, okay, if the pick and roll is not working, if you want to try to run a pick and roll and it's blocked up, like I would like to see like Malik Beasley in the corner. I'd like to see Pat Connaughton in the corner because the whole point to surrounding Giannis with shooters is so he has an outlet to kick it out to.
Mm-hmm.
If Giannis is just going up against 2 or 3 guys every time, like that strategy is not going to work. And you see what happens when Giannis isn't surrounded with shooters, like it was against the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals against the Raptors. We large enough didn't really have a lot of shooting on the team, so Giannis was going up against 4 or 5 guys every time by himself.
And I feel like, because I know Jay Crowder is also one of the guys who kind of likes to sit in the corner, and he's kind of been shooting well as of recently. But I feel like, again, if you were to utilize it, to have that extra person away, because again, you see the pick and roll coming with Giannis and Damian Lillard. You know where one of them's going to go. Either one's going to sit on the 3-point line for Lillard, or Giannis is going to go to the hoop. But yeah, to have those corner guys, I think can be helpful overall. I just want to see it worked consistently to see if it is effective or not. That's the only thing I feel like it's missing.
Yeah. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully the pick and roll gets ran a little more. But I do think you are right that, I'm sure they just don't want it to teams just don't want to figure it out right away. So they don't overuse it. Then, that's basically their only plan offensively. Evan, you got anything else?
I do not. Again, we got another game tomorrow for, what is that, a Monday game? So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, I think it was. But Nets game tomorrow night. Hopefully they can come out with a win, because they're going to need a little win streak.
Yes, sir. So, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. And like Evan mentioned, 4 games this week, and we'll be here to cover all those games. So,
Yes.
see you guys in the next few days.